want to talk to you today is about just exploring fatherhood as a whole and like what it means, where we are in today versus the past. And I'm going to make this a two-part series. So what we're going to work on today is just this first part is going to be today is going to be part number 1. Then next week I'm going to upload part number 2 because as I was going over this, I was like, this is a lot of information. So the thing is, let's just dive straight into it. So the thing is that fatherhood has evolved so much over time versus back in the 1930s, 40s, and 50s, where you look at a lot of fathers used to go to work. They would work long, extensive hours. And what they would do, they would go to work and they would work and then they would come home later on at night. And then they would eat breakfast in the morning, come home at night. The wife would be at home cooking and cleaning. And then after that, what happened was the father would come home, he would eat dinner, he would see his kids, watch TV, maybe even grab a beer, and he was pretty much done. But things have changed so much over time that now we have started to dive into fathers who are a little bit more connected to their kids. Whereas back then, fathers may not have been as connected. And I remember when I talked to my dad about this, because my dad grew up, so his uncle adopted him, but he adopted him back into his own family because his father wasn't really there, but his father was his uncle. And the thing that you really have to see is that I remember my father telling me, hey, my father he worked as a janitor, and then they worked so hard to send my father to college. And then they worked so hard just to pay for different things and stuff like that, where they had central heater in like one room and central AC in like one room and then they just had to they had where it was like the chimney and stuff and they used to warm it up. And then they used to be in one centralized area. Whereas today we have central heat and air all around the apartment, all around the home. And you got to think about these certain things, how technology has just made so much advances for fathers to really be there for their kids and spend a little bit more time at home. And I think back then, fatherhood was just so much of a different task as opposed to now where we are. And the thing is, you have to look at it. Fathers back then, they were just not as connected. Maybe they didn't go to the games all the time, and maybe they had to get sheets of papers for the schedules of the games that the kids played. And sometimes fathers weren't able to always be there because they had to work and they had work commitments and stuff. But what we want to do is we want to look at to where we are now in the modern day area where fathers can use their cell phones, they can use laptops, desktops in order to see what's going on around them. They can even check the grades and stuff back then, like where we are now. And back then we weren't able to really do that. What we had was we didn't even have caller ID back in the 1930s, 40s, and 50s. And I remember growing up as a kid, for me, when we had caller ID pretty much started probably somewhere around the 90s or so. And fathers just back then, I think they wanted to connect with the kids, but it was certain parts where they would see their kids in the morning and drop them off at school. And then after that, the mom may even drop them off at school. Whereas fathers now are so much more connected emotionally. They're connected to see where their kids are as far as their grades, their friends, and their favorite colors. And I think that maybe fathers back then, they weren't necessarily bad fathers. This is just where we were economically, based on jobs, and based on where we were. Fathers now, we have technology, and we're able to even see our kids on cameras at daycare. I remember when I was sitting at work, this was maybe 5 years ago, almost close to 10 years ago, because my older son is 10 years old. That I remember sitting there at work and watching on the computer and on my phone, I was able to see my child at the daycare because of the capacity and the capabilities that we had on video and able just to see our kids. And the thing is, we didn't used to have that technology back then. So I think advancement in technology has really helped to expand and broaden our horizon, able to see that, we're able to really see our kids in different capacity that we weren't able to see back then. And I think it's such a wonderful thing that fathers are really able to be there. And the emotional part too, when you look at kids from today. So my older son, I connect with him on an emotional level just as I would connect with my younger son on an emotional level. But it's two different emotional levels. My older son, you can get on him, you can yell at him, hey, you need to get this done right now and stuff like that, because he's been able to see when we were married, me and his mom, and then we were together versus now when we weren't together. And at first I remember my son really, I wouldn't say he was really crying. He was just he was kind of managing things. He was kind of sad and down and stuff like that. And I remember him talking about at one point he wanted his parents to be back together. And I just told him, hey, look, that's just never going to happen. And I'm not going to talk about his mom and down him or anything like that. But the fact of the matter is just that I told him, hey, look, your mom has decided that this is not what she wants in order to be married. And I always say, I think your mom is a wonderful person. There were some things she's just not happy about, and that's okay. I hope that his mom finds the right person for her. And that's really the thing. I don't down his mom or anything like that. I tell him, hey, look, we pay for soccer. We're able to be there at your events. We're able to be there at conferences and stuff like that. And it's had such a great impact as far as like me being able to see my kids. I mean, I tell a lot of people, honestly, my connection with my kids has gotten better post-divorce as it did from before. And a lot of that just has to do with the emotional connection. I'm able to talk to my son, hey, let's sit down and let's talk about things. Even like the other day, we went out to eat, me and my older son, because his younger son was at baseball, whereas the older one is at soccer. So it's like co-parenting, navigating certain things and stuff. Even with the digital type of technology, I can send a message. My co-parent is able to get it within less than a minute. And that's how I'm able to just connect, like, hey, let's talk about things, let's go over things, and what do you think? And the realization of my older son realizing, hey, my parents aren't going to be together. And my son now, he says, he wishes his parents were never back together. He has a little bit more freedom over there, where sometimes she might be a little bit more structured at his mom's. And that's just how things are. My younger son is a little bit more emotional. And I don't know if it's because he's just younger or if he just has an emotional side, or it could be a collaboration of two. And we'll see as time goes on. And the fact of the matter is that my younger son, sometimes, he's a little bit more attached to his mom, and he's just like, he gets sad sometimes, or he cries, and sometimes he hopes and wishing his parents is back together. And he's talked about it before, and I told him, try to be as nice as I can, because I don't want to start crying. Your mom just decided that this is not what she wanted and stuff. And that's okay. We're still going to be there at your baseball events. We're going to be there any type of event that you want and stuff like that. And with my younger son, I have to hug him more, give him a kiss more, tell him that you care about him. And that's just his personality. And I tell people there's nothing wrong with him. He's just more sensitive. And I'm able to have that great connection and notice that each child that you have, whether you have 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 kids, each kid has a different type of personality. And you want to be able to connect with them on that emotional level. And I'm so fortunate to be there for my kids and say, hey, I'm here. I'm able to be there for you. And I understand one kid is a little bit more harder and rougher, my older kid, as opposed to my younger son, which is not as rough and as hard. But I'm able to just give him hugs and kisses, and that's just how he is. He's just sensitive. I mean, that's just how it is. And we'll see as time goes on. And then sometimes what you see now is absent fathers. Some fathers are very absent to where they don't want to take care of their kids, whether it be child support, which is monetary, or you see some fathers where it could be they don't want to be, they just didn't want kids and they ended up having a kid with the woman, or the divorce happened and they don't want to see the woman anymore. And some fathers may have been there back then. They were probably really in the picture as a father back in the 1920s and 30s. And some fathers weren't. As I hit on before, like my father, his dad was never there for him. And I mean, it's an unfortunate situation, but that's the way things were. But the wonderful thing was his uncle adopted him back into his own family. And I was so happy about that, because sometimes people really need people to be there for them. And having family that's there is makes such a significant impact. And it really helps kids out and stuff like that. And as I've talked about before, I think my father was amazing in my life. Did he have his flaws and stuff like that as a father? Absolutely. As any father and any human does. As I talk about many a times, my father was there for me when I was, 0 coming out of my mom, all the way till I was about 19, after my father did self-delete. And it's an unfortunate situation, but I tell people all the time, I'm not mad or upset. Sometimes people deal with mental health and different issues and stuff like that. But I was so happy that my father was there at my basketball games, track meets, and different things like that. He encouraged me and stuff like that. And the same thing I do with my father. And I tell people all the time, try to be there for your kids as much as you can. And if you're going through a divorce or you're having some type of co-parenting situation, it's an unfortunate situation, but try to be there as much as you can. And as I tell people, like my older son, I see him like all the time. And it's just simply because he has soccer. He has practice 2 times a week, then he has a game, and then sometimes we have like another game I might schedule and stuff like that. Whereas my younger son, it's not so much that I don't love him. It's like I see my kids the 1st, 3rd, and 5th of each month, from Thursday to all the way till Monday morning, and I'm able to really see both of them. But because my younger son has baseball, his mom has to take him there, which is at one place, and then it's like my older son, I take him to soccer, which is at another place. But I still love both of my kids equally and stuff like that. And that's just how it is. But I do have to admit, sometimes we don't, as parents, we might not necessarily say that we all love our kids, but sometimes we love other kids more, and other kids a little bit more than we love our others. And sometimes it's just an unfortunate situation. You don't have to be mean or rude. But my older son just spends a lot of time with me. He's seen the ups, he's seen the downs, the goods, the bads, and negatives, and everything all around. And that's just how things are. And, as fatherhoods too, you just want to make sure you're having a positive mental impact on your kids. Because sometimes teachers can be very negative and stuff like that. And that's not all of them, because I'm not saying all teachers are like that. But I remember when the school system was telling me as a child that I had ADD, ADHD, and all these different elemental P, all these different things. You can believe whatever you want as a parent. And that happened to me. I used to be very down as a child. And then as time went on and growing up, I would say the big impact I had was like when I got to college, I got in, but I barely got in. And then it's like I failed certain classes, but I had my ups and downs. And then after that, I remember taking classes and passing and being like, man, I could really do this. And I just kept going. Sometimes I remember I dropped out of college for a while and got back in, dropped out again, got back in. And then eventually I was like, I could do this. And then I graduated. That's just kind of how my life has been, just as a father, ups and downs and stuff like that. But I continue to keep going on. And I tell my kids the same thing. And I can give you a great example of that. Like even when my older son, when he's practicing, I tell him just to try your best and stuff like that. And there's sometimes a coach may pull him off because he say he's not doing well and stuff like that. And I say, well, let's just study film and let's do it. And there's been other kids on my son's soccer team where they just gave up and they really didn't want to do soccer, or they wanted to go to another club. And I told my son, hey, look, I'm going to tell you some of the similar things my dad told me. You're going to have wins and losses and stuff. But the fact of the matter is that you want to try your best and stuff like that. He continued to stay with his team and just compete. And that's the thing. I really try to make a positive impact and tell my kids, no matter what the teachers say about you, if you have ADD and all these kind of goofy names and stuff like that, just remember, I'm here fighting in your corner for you as a father. And I really want to tell you that I believe in you. And that's not enough. You have to believe in yourself. And I believe that my kids really do believe in themselves, because I want to be that positive role model. And I'm so happy and fortunate to have two wonderful children. And I tell people, just be happy with the kids that you got. So remember, hit like if you like this video, subscribe, try to share it with other fathers out there so they become better fathers. That's what this channel is all about. I'm going to have part 2 next week, and we're going to keep going, because the whole thing about my channel is all about helping fathers become better fathers, helping mothers become better mothers, and just helping parents just all around. I just want to make a positive impact all around the world, and that's what it's all about. So thank you for watching this video. I'll see y'all next time. Thanks.